what happens to a body that's stagnant, that is not moving, and somebody that's worked with the highest professional athletes that move for a living, right? Is there a prescription on, recommended dose of moving per day? So yeah, what happens to us when we don't move metabolically, physiologically? Does it affect other areas of our life like the alcohol as well? And then yeah, kind of prescription on what optimal movement would be.
So absolutely great question. So your muscles respond, right? Your entire body is going to respond to conditioning, right? And conditioning can be, obviously highly variable depending on what you're doing. If your body is used to sitting down and down for certain lengths of time, it's like getting outside of that, literally the muscles are shorter. And so you have to start lengthening them to their ideal, their optimal length, but you're going to have to physically pull them apart in some capacity. It's not like they're so tight that you're like trying to burst out of an egg or something like that. But at the same time, when we get to like the microscopic scale, the stretching and the feedback system that interacts with the nervous system can be really difficult to overcome for some people. So you have connective tissues that are going to tighten down. Um, and so it's like stagnation is going to literally just cause all of your body to essentially just tighten, right? You can literally think of it almost just like you're shriveling. And this is going to have dramatic effects on, your cardiovascular system. Something a lot of people don't understand is that blood gets back to your heart through your venous system, through veins. Well, veins aren't really muscular. Some of them are, but what that means is there's no pump to push the blood back to your heart. A lot of that movement comes from skeletal muscles. Just literally moving is what's going to help facilitate a lot of that. There's other things at play, fluid dynamics. It can get pretty tedious with the science, but at the same time, that's what's going to be happening is you're going to have some kind of effect with the cardiovascular system on there. So you're going to have a tightening down, you're going to have it affecting your blood pressure, but it's also going to affect your gut, your digestion, your urinary system. All of these things are impacted by connective tissue. And so if you are not really moving, everything's going to start tightening down and it's just going to reduce overall body function.
No, Justin, that's great, man. And I think it actually kind of leads me to, what I wanted to ask you next here. So I have a background in bodybuilding. I was somewhat of an overweight kid, kind of fell in love with the gym around 15, got into competitive sport of things. I'm 40 here today, and it's like, I feel so great, like no injuries. I honestly feel better than I did when I was 30. And when I was 30, I was chasing being the biggest human being I could ever be. But as we're kind of talking about this movement and the musculature and how that's kind of like playing a large portion of this, what role does physical development, resistance training, strength training play in overall health, longevity? I'm sure you see a lot of bodies that, like, you can tell that person never stepped foot into a gym or picked up a weight. So yeah, let's talk about strength resistance training here for a little bit.
It is probably one of, if not the, it's hard. Again, it's hard. That was pretty. It's so important. It's borderline the most important thing you can do for your health. It's that important because it only gets more difficult for protein synthesis to occur the older you get. So, it's not that you can't start going to the gym as you're older, say like if you start going when you're 40, but it's going to be so much more difficult to build the muscle that you really are going to need. And at this point, I say need. Earlier on in life, it is kind of more so just about, I mean, like, it's obviously great for your health and all these things, but a lot of it, there's wiggle room because it's cool. It's fun. It's great. You look good. And I'm not saying those are things you shouldn't chase. I'm just saying, like, it's not as important as it is when you get older, because when you get older, when we say longevity, it's not just like it's good for cardiovascular health, heart health. It's not that it's just good for that. It's literally good for saving your life. When you get older, slipping and falling, having the strength to grab something to prevent yourself from falling, just literally walking downstairs, like, I know, and that sounds crazy. It's like, okay, well, I shouldn't be falling down the stairs when I'm 40. And it's like the same, you actually might, and you never know, your muscles can save you, but it's more likely to happen when you're 50, 60, 70, 80. And so the work you put in when you're 40, 30, 40, that only pays dividends if you continue on to the best of your ability later on in life. It's like, obviously you're not going to be bodybuilding when you're 80, but the bodybuilding and the routines and the work you've done is going to help you literally just be stronger in so many different ways, that is just going to be is going to be very helpful. But I mean, yes, it improves literally everything, even digestive health, right? Again, when you're focusing, say, like on the core health, those types of things can even impact your ability to digest and, say, bowel movements properly. And those types of things can actually have downstream effects on colorectal health. I'm not saying you're saying like doing sit-ups prevents colon cancer, but at the same time, staying, having regular bowel movements is one of the best things you can do for your health. And it's amazing how much core health can actually help with that, and that those problems start to make themselves more apparent later on in life. So look, you don't have to be a bodybuilder, but going to the gym, slinging around some weights, resistance and strength training is about as close to the top of the list, if not the top of the list, the things you can do. And it's also just good for your mental health, right? It's which is something that I know a lot of people talk about, and I'm so glad it's being talked about. It's just like quite literally, you just function better after a great amount of strength training and resistance training. So it is. I mean, I could sing its praises all day. It's just absolutely incredible for you, and you can tell. You can tell with body donors when you see them. Again, it's hard because if you have cancer, you're obviously not going to be going to the gym every day. So but at the same time, you can start seeing what looks like obvious um, avoidance at the gym over a lifetime. You can start seeing little things in people, especially like degenerated discs, back health. You can start seeing the impacts those have on people.
Probably even tendons and ligaments and stuff like that as well, right? Because those are going to strengthen through, a lot of functional, free weight based movements. That's strengthening of all that as well.
Absolutely. And bone health. But I mean, even just bone health. I mean, like when you are lifting weights, I mean, you're literally sending electricity, right? It's electrochemical energy, but I mean, it's called the piezoelectric effect. When you put pressure on something, the electrons actually get smushed together, and that actually creates an electric current. And when you do that through bone, that causes it to strengthen itself. This is why if you start like, say, hitting the jumping rope, right? You're starting to jump rope, that constant kinetic bouncing and impact on the bone is actually through electricity telling the bone to reinforce itself and to become stronger. This goes with everything you do with strength training. So it's like, I mean, and that's important because if your bones become osteoporotic or porotic, like you have osteoporosis, that's how you fall and break a hip. That is how you just go down the stairs and literally just crack your tibia open. So it's so important.
No, Justin, I agree, 100% on, I think all of that. I'm glad you were kind of able to articulate a lot of that. I think it's Dr. Gabrielle Lyon that, calls muscle, the fountain of youth. Like, it obviously does a great job of changing our external. And that's why a lot of young men get into it early on. That was a driver for me, right? You want to look great. You want to, be able to pick up shakes and stuff like that. But for me, it's like, I've so grateful. And I tell all the young men that, I get to coach and mentor. It's like, spend your 20s literally building as much muscle as you possibly can. For one, it's probably going to be the best time for you to do it. You don't have as many responsibilities, and then it's going to carry with you for the remainder of your life. Like I said, man, and I'm not here to gloat myself, but it's like, I'm doing things at 40, the ability to jump on a 48, inch box. It's like, I love to play softball completely injury free. And I credit so much of it to the time that I spend in the gym.